Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for watching. Today I have a really fun video for you guys and hopefully a really helpful video for you guys as well. I want to talk a little bit about using multiple planners. So over the years and throughout my planner journey, I have been using several different types of planners. Throughout that time, including now, I have used multiple planners. So I have found a system and I have developed some tips and tricks that I would love to share with you as to how you can use multiple planners at once. So today I'm going to give you my 5 tips to successfully using multiple planners. Now, first of all, why would you want to use multiple planners in the first place? Well, for one, there's a lot of different planners on the market and it can be really hard to choose just one. So while you might just switch out binders if you have a specific type of planning system, you also might have different types of planners that you want to use. Because there's different types of planners, you might be able to separate the things you need to plan into all of these planners to enjoy them. Another reason why you might want to use multiple planner systems is because you have too many things to plan. So if you have bigger categories, you might need to separate all of those things into different planners. So let's go ahead and start with tip 1 and we'll get into how to actually do this successfully. Tip number 1 is to make sure that you have a clear and defined purpose for each of your planners. Having a clear and defined purpose for each of your planners is probably the number 1 tip and the first thing you're going to want to do. So how can you do this? Well, you can start off by mind mapping or just list making, maybe even brain dumping all of your ideas as to what you need to plan for. Once you know what you need to plan for and the things that you want to plan out in your life, you can start identifying big categories, things that you can split up, things that you can combine, and decide if you really should use separate planners because you do have big enough categories to do so. So once you do that, make sure you have a clear and defined purpose for each of them, and then you're well on your way to creating a successful system that coincides and that you can use without any overlap. Speaking of overlap, that brings me to tip number 2, which is to make sure that you don't have too much overlap in these planners. So why do you not want to have too much overlap in these planners? Mostly because then you will start to neglect one and you probably won't use both of them as often. So you want to make sure that what you're planning and tracking in these planners are separate, that they're 2 separate things and that you don't have too much overlap because you are going to be getting tired of checking both and rewriting and replanning all of these things over and over again. Not only are you going to get tired, but you are going to be wasting time. So let's say fitness is one of the categories I find to be a big category and something I want to plan in a different planner. That is great. However, I want to make sure that in my personal planner, which is my everyday planner, I'm not tracking anything fitness related. That is because I'm going to be feeling like I am rewriting information in both planners and it is not going to be something that is going to save me time. And trust me, when you have a busy day, it's not something you're going to want to do. So if I start to track things in my personal planner that have to do with fitness and health, I am not going to want to use my separate planner anymore. And then eventually what is going to happen is I'm going to just stop using that planner overall and it's going to become useless to me. So just make sure that you don't have too much overlap and you are good to go. Tip number 3 is to make sure that you have a scheduled time that you want to check these planners, whether that be checking each planner every single day or maybe just checking one of the planners every other day at a specific time, not necessarily, let's say at 10 a.m. every single day, but if you want to update, let's say your fitness planner every other day because that's when you work out, make sure that you've committed to that time because what's going to happen is you're going to get busy and you're going to forget about your planner. So you actually have to plan in that you are going to update it and that you are going to plan in it and check it, because that is the one way that you're going to keep up with it. The one kind of con or just kind of hard thing about having multiple planners and why most people don't like to do it is because it does take time to check all of them. But as I said, if you have a purpose, if you have a scheduled time, and if you don't have too much overlap, you should be good to go. So just make sure that within your plans that you're also jotting down when you want to update these different planners and when you actually want to plan in them so that you can keep up with them. Tip number 4 is to decide on a main planner and then decide on other planners that are going to be for unique and special things. Let's say you want to have one for event planning or project planning. That is great, but that is not something that you need to check every day. So on a very busy day, when maybe you don't have time to sit down and update all of your systems, you at least know that you have one that you want to focus on. So tip number 4 is to make sure you have a main planner so that you can at least focus on what is really important for that day. Tip number 5, and it's also just kind of an overall wrap up of everything we've kind of talked about, is to make sure that every single planner has a system and a purpose. So we kind of went over that a little bit, but having a system in your planner and kind of having a routine as to how you update it, how you check it, is going to keep things from getting too messy. You don't want to guess as to how it's happening. Now, let's say one of your planners is to decorate. That is great. That is going to be the system and the purpose for that planner. So it's really nice to have different types of planners that you plan in, because it really does take off the pressure of having to plan a certain way if you do like to plan different types of ways. A great example of that is, let's say in my personal planner, the one that I use every single day, I like to keep that really functional and really task oriented. I don't really like a whole lot of decorating and stickers. But let's say I also like to plan with stickers and it relaxes me and it's something that I enjoy doing, then I may use a different planner altogether to do that, so that when I do have time, I can actually have some fun in that planner. But it's not anything that I need to take too seriously, and I do have a system in place for when and how I'm using that planner. Another example may be, as I mentioned before, maybe a fitness planner, maybe a health planner, or a recipe planner, whatever it may be. Maybe the system for me is that every single week I go into my meal planner or my recipe planner and I update it. That is a system that I have in place so that I don't always have to be worrying about what the purpose is, when I'm going to do it, and it starts to get a little bit messy if you don't have systems in place like that. So tip number 5 is just make sure each planner has a system as to how you're using it, how it best fits your needs, and also that it has a purpose. The way you choose what to use your planners for is going to be totally unique to you, but there's definitely some ways that I've always liked to use planners in the past, and so I will share that with you now. A few of the ways I like to use my planners are obviously one as a main planner for my task-oriented items, my to-do list, my appointments, birthdays, things like that. I've also enjoyed keeping a memory keeping planner, and that is one that I kind of come and go in and out of, but that's always fun to do. I love keeping health and fitness planners. I think it really takes the pressure off of having it in my personal planner, and I like to just kind of focus on that as a whole, so I've loved having planners for that. I like having a separate planner for like projects and taking notes, and having just like a visual for things that have very long processes. I find that with my personal planners, sometimes it's too small for me to take really rigorous notes, and even though I can, it's actually not as comfortable for me than to have a really large paper to brainstorm on. So I know for me it doesn't quite work. So having that separate planner is super helpful. And that is one of the reasons why I enjoy using multiple planners, is because it kind of gives me a chance to tap into the different ways that I like to plan for different subjects. So if you've never used a different planner, or if you've never used multiple planners before, it might be something you want to consider. However, if you know that it's just not for you, then that's okay too. But I sure hope that these tips helped you, and that you take these 5 tips and use them in your systems, and maybe just kind of update and refine your systems if you're having a little bit of trouble, or if you wanted to give it a chance, or maybe you just have a bunch of different planners lying around and you love them all and you just want a reason to use some of them. So thank you so much for watching and spending some time with me. I sure hope that this was helpful. If you're new to my channel, subscribe. I'd love to have you. And if you did like this video, then press like, because it does help me to determine what content you're liking and what content I should be providing to you. So again, thank you for watching, and I will see you again soon.